Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, the place where we not only talk about what's going on in the gun world, but also how we're going to fix it together. And the content that we're going to talk about today to start our day off is the response to the Australian mass stabbings that just occurred in two different locations, but also how they're framing this from a standpoint of, but oh man, if we had had guns though, because there was an abject failure in the prevention of any type of violence. That's what we're about to break down. I've got two different articles we're going to walk through. Everything will be linked into the description box below, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think on this one. And of course, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. Now, this content is brought to you by the giveaway given by Vanish Holsters. I'm going to say a quick word for them, and then we are going to hit this. I've got to tell you about the biggest giveaway I've ever done on this channel. Vanish Holsters is giving away an $80,000 custom Rocky Ridge Silverado for free to one lucky American who buys one of their holsters or t-shirts through June 3rd. Now, this is not your everyday range holster. This is the holster that eliminates the excuse not to carry every day because of comfort. In fact, there's a money-back guarantee based around that comfort level. It fits 99% of semi-automatic handguns on the market, can hold 2 magazines, and is completely versatile in where you actually strap this bad boy up. It has a no-stink material, it's completely adjustable, and it fits up to 48 to 68 inch waist. And in order to have this opportunity to get the truck, all you have to do is enter to win in the link below for $50 off your order as well, and you get a chance for this truck. So check it out right down there in the description box. All right, beautiful people, we have got to go down under. And this is fascinating the way they are responding to this, because if you are not familiar, there were two different knife attacks in Australia. You know, the gun control mecca of Australia. The one that the gun-controlling politicians here in the United States say we should be just like. So you had a mass stabbing which killed 6 people in a mall. Does that sound familiar? And then you had an attack on a priest in the middle of his sermon in Australia in a different place. Okay, so you had two different attacks. This is how they're responding to this. Listen to this. I want to show you and highlight something very important that they're trying to frame this from. Listen to this. Gun-shy Australia, reeling from knife crime, weighs public security settings. So even in addressing the fact that they have a significant knife crime problem, they have to bring in the fact that but we don't have guns. Oh goodness, imagine if we did. Yeah, if you did, you might actually have citizens ready to stop this type of thing on the ready. But, different thing. It's your country, not my thing. I'm about freedom. You do you, boo. But anyway, let's talk about this a little further. 2 stabbing attacks in Sydney, which killed 6 people and injured shoppers and an Assyrian bishop during his service, have shocked Australians and sparked calls for greater public security despite some of the world's toughest gun laws. There it is again. They are criticizing the Australian government for more public safety, but then the coverage here is all about, but we have the most stringent gun laws. They're trying to bring in guns as much as they can to say, no, but imagine how much worse it could have been. The fact is, it still existed because you can't stop violent criminals. You can't stop violent behavior. That's what we're going to get to here in a second, but they're trying to couch this as, but imagine if they had guns. Oh, it would be so much worse. Yeah, if you had guns, you know who else would have guns? Other citizens. Anyway, let's continue here. The attacks have also lifted the lid on growing public unease about non-gun violence that drove the state government of New South Wales, of which Sydney is the capital, to double prison terms for public knife crimes months earlier. So they doubled prison terms for knife crimes for non-gun violence, which is a very interesting term by itself. And yet this still happened. Does it make sense why they're trying to couch this? But imagine if they had guns, but look, we have the toughest gun laws. Yeah, you're talking about knife crime. In their words, right? New South Wales Premier Chris Minns had said it would be irresponsible not to look at toughening knife laws further, although he didn't specify how. That's because it's idiotic. He said the state would review whether security guards could carry handcuffs, pepper spray, or batons, although he ruled out guns or tasers. Yeah, you heard that right. They might get handcuffs because they don't get handcuffs. They might get batons. And they might get pepper spray. Ooh. In the face of maniacs with knives. At least you guys know it's not just gun controllers here. It's gun controllers everywhere because they want to legislate out morality, and you can't. You cannot legislate morality. As this is about to show you, you had a mass stabbing occur in a gun control state because they got a knife because the criminal's going to criminal. And their whole defense here is, but imagine if he had a gun. A hypothetical? That's what you want to go with here is your defense is a hypothetical. Okay, let's continue. We've been actively considering whether to expand the public spaces that police can wand into include shopping centers, like metal detector wands. As part of the Bondi Junction Mall reopening on Friday, all 37 Westfield shopping centers nationally will have increased security presence with metal detector wands. Again, I thought this was to make a non-prison-like feel because guns are gone, so criminals ain't going criminal. It's kind of like if you raise the penalty for vehicle theft, people won't steal vehicles anymore. No, all you did was make the value higher. Anyway, one more thing for you, because this is kind of interesting, and then we'll get to the second article, which is wow. But the proportion of homicides caused by a knife or other sharp implement has risen to 43% in the 5 years to 2021. The latest year data is available from 34% in the 5 years before the 1996 laws. Talking about the gun crime laws or the gun removal laws. So knife crime is going up in Australia, knife crime is going up in London, and you're getting mass stabbings happen. Almost like mental ill going to mental ill. So you're going to take more rights and privileges away from the citizenry in order to prevent mentally ill and criminals. It's what they do across the spectrum. And I'm trying to draw this correlation. They do this in the United States. They do this in Europe. They do this in France. They do this in Germany. They do this across the entire first world because now Australia is saying, well, we're going to look at toughening knife crime penalties and more legislation because that stopped them last time, that we doubled the penalties. And we're going to give the security guards maybe handcuffs. Okay. Well, let's continue. Let's let the propaganda march on. The Sydney Mall attack was horrifying. It could have been worse. This is from Time magazine. Again, everything's linked. Listen to this. If the 40-year-old man or the youth who stabbed people at a Sydney church later in the week had firearms, how many more people would have died? Complete hypothetical. No way to know that answer. What if the civilians had guns? Same thing. You could have stopped it dead in its tracks. A knife is a terrifying weapon, but you have to get close and be stronger than your victim to use it. Completely not true. In the videos in the Bondi Junction attack, you can see people warding off the killer. One of them using the flat end of a bollard to keep. I think a bollard is like the. I can't remember what it is, but it's an inanimate object. To keep him trapped on an escalator for a while. Another just turning to face him and squaring up before the attacker veers off in another direction. There's no scenario in which furniture or fist best a firearm. No, but civilians having firearms do best firearms. We've seen it in the United States with civilians defending mass shooters or civilians defending against mass shooters, defending civilians and killing them when they're trying to perpetrate a crime. We've seen it consistently. The defensive stack uses is so much more than the crime uses, and that's published by the CDC, while Davey Hogg likes to say it's an NRA talking point. No, it's the CDC. I believe it was 2 million defensive uses per year. Anyway, let's continue because this is all about saving their face with the gun control laws and then trying to take more knives from you, just like the Brits did. In the end, the assailant was taken down by a lone police officer, yes, with a gun. Shocker. The gun stopped the knife-wielding maniac. There was no need to wait for the SWAT team, no panicked law enforcement officers trying to figure out what they're dealing with, no setting up in a high Kevlar vest before going in. Bystanders told the officer where the knife wielder was. She found him, he raised his knife at her, and she shot him. The point that they're trying to make is it didn't have to be a massive response. It was still superior force. Whether you have 10 SWAT team members or you have one cop, the superior force was the firearm. But they don't want to say that. They can only say, well, thank God we didn't have guns because it would have been so much worse. You cannot guarantee that because Australia still has guns. They have the toughest gun laws in the nation or in the world, or some of the toughest in the world, but they still have them. So the idea that, oh man, he could have never had a gun because there's no guns on the island is not an accurate representation because he chose a knife and he stabbed as many people as possible. But anyway, one more thing here because this should also sound very familiar. The Bondi Junction attacker's father says he tried to keep knives away from his son, and as history has proved devastatingly often, it's hard to keep any readily available weapon away from those determined to hurt, but making guns harder to get can, and in Bondi Junction did save lives. No way to prove that, complete conjecture. But the whole point here is they are admitting in this article, which is why they're covering it from this angle of, imagine if guns were here, you can't stop criminals from getting guns if they want to do harm. She said it right there in a Time magazine article. The entire point here is you can try to legislate morality. You can try to increase your knife crime penalties. You can try to increase the legislation on knives like Britain did. You can try to do anything you want. You can even give your security guards handcuffs for the first time. Ooh. But the fact is, criminal's gonna criminal. We live in a world where predators see people as victims, and they're going to take advantage, particularly if you disarm the victims and make them more victims. Because you could have saved 5 people, 6 people's lives if you had someone there with a gun other than the cop. It works the exact same way, but they don't want to say that. Well, if guns existed, it would be worse. Well, if guns existed, they could have stopped him. We can do the exact same thing. The point here is they're trying to save face and cover the mall stabbing shooting by saying, "Oh, but imagine if guns were here." That don't work. This only highlights our point further, and that's what I've got for you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next one. I'm Braden. See you later.